today. We're excited to have you all here. We are muting as we admit you, and we will be recording today's session. So before we begin, a few housekeeping items. Microsoft Teams does show 9 different cameras at a time, so if you don't hide your camera, the chances are that other people will be viewing you. So just keep that in mind in case you decide to have lunch during this phone call. Also, due to the number of participants today, we've automatically muted everyone. So if you have anything to add to the conversation, please note it in the chat box and we can call on you. And you can also put your questions in the chat box, or you can send them through email to professional@asce.org. Please close all of your applications, especially email, so that your system will run smoothly today. And then also, please keep all conversations geared towards the benefit of the community and today's topic. So with all of that being said, I want to begin today's roundtables with some introductions from our awesome panelists. Then each panelist will share their perspective and insights on the topic of adjusting management styles and practices to thrive in the new normal. And then our panelists will be responding to questions. So again, as you have questions, please put them in the chat box. Really excited to hear what you all have to say about this topic as well. So Preeti, can you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Preeti Gibson. I am a PE for 20 years. I currently serve on the ASCE Committee on Professional Advancement, and I work for a large public sector environmental engineering organization in Southern California, and I've worked there my whole career. And I'd like to give a little disclaimer at the beginning that the views I'll be sharing are my own and not reflective of my organization.
Awesome, thank you. Next, we'll go to Peyton. Peyton, can you go ahead and introduce yourself next?
Hi, I'm Peyton Gibson. My job is based out of Washington, D.C., but I'm currently staying with family because of the pandemic. But I work at the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine on the board on infrastructure and the constructed environment. I help advise the federal government and the nation in areas of buildings and the built environment, usually done through technical study committees and a board of leading experts. I also support the Federal Facilities Council in identifying and conveying technology and practices to support facilities throughout their life cycle. And I'm also a part-time graduate student in transportation engineering right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Peyton, for joining us. And next, we'll turn to Lauren or LP. Do you have a preference, Lauren, or do you only have friends that call you LP?
LP is easier to spell and easier to say, so that'll work. Thank you, Tears. And these Thursdays at 3 roundtables have been phenomenal. So thank you for facilitating these. So my name is Lauren Pratt. I live in Hoover, Alabama. I work for KBR in our Birmingham, Alabama office. And KBR is a global company based in Houston. We have over 37,000 employees. So in addition to working during this current pandemic, I've got a little bit of experience with virtual management while working with our different offices. And then prior to KBR, I worked for another company. It was regionally headquartered, or is regionally headquartered here in Birmingham, has less than 100 employees. So I hope to offer some insight into my management experience in both the smaller companies and the larger companies. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for joining us. So the next panelist that we have is Darren Williams, and it looks like he's had trouble joining us. Darren, are you on the phone? Well, hopefully Darren is able to join us, and once we do, we can go ahead and have him introduce himself. But I'll go ahead and start off with the kickoff question. And Susan and Kelly, if you notice that Darren's on the phone and I don't, please let me know so that we can have him introduce himself and start engaging in the conversation. But for managers used to a more traditional work environment, what suggestions do you have as they must stray from their comfort zone and challenge their traditional ways? So, this is obviously a really difficult time for all of us, and we're changing, we're adapting. As the kickoff question, I'll go to Preeti first. What are your thoughts on this? Preeti, are you there? I wonder if Preeti's frozen. All right, I'll go to LP. Do you want to go ahead and start off with our kickoff question, and hopefully we can get Preeti back on the phone?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the traditional management work environment for me is management by walking around, MBWA. And that's really, a personal interaction with my team members, and you can't do this working remotely. So we as managers and leaders, we've got to be a little bit more intentional in how we interact with our team. So I firmly believe that the way to get the most out of any group is to first develop a good relationship. I know I heard on one of the previous Thursdays at 3 roundtables that we are social creatures, so personal interaction for us is a must, and it is for me too. Maybe a little difficult if you're introverted, but on some level we all crave some type of personal interaction. So in a traditional work environment, I really enjoy sitting in somebody's office, their cubicle, on their desk, whatever, and discussing non-work related topics. Where's the best place to eat barbecue in Hoover, Alabama? You can learn a lot about people just by this type of simple interaction. And right now, I can't do this management by walking around right now. We can talk via Skype or Microsoft Office. And one of our previous Thursdays at 3 panelists, I think Stephanie Slocum may have been, said that turning on our video during these work from home calls are very beneficial, and I agree, because my interaction with people in the office and just seeing people on the call, it allows me to learn a little bit more about who I'm talking with, and vice versa. So I was on the call the other day and somebody made a comment about the t-shirt I was wearing, which is fine, but what it did is it opened up a way to create a more deeper relationship with that individual. So, and again, those relationships are what I believe we need as a foundation for effective management. So one of my management challenges right now is making sure that I'm staying engaged with the folks that I work with. And, my comfort zone is more one-on-one, so I can read the other person. So another challenge for me is being able to effectively read somebody while talking virtually. So my suggestion there is just to continue and build your personal relationships, because I think that's the beginning, that's the foundation for what we need for working in this current environment.
Absolutely. Those are some great thoughts. I know I've personally really enjoyed getting to see where my coworkers live, right? Like feels like it's a much more personal environment when you're actually like going into someone's home. Yeah. Darren, you're back. Can we hear you?
Yes, this is Darren.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Darren. I'm sorry about all the technical difficulties. But I'll go ahead and let you go ahead and introduce yourself next, if you want to just share a few thoughts about yourself.
Okay, I'm Darren Williams. I've been a practicing civil engineer for 12 years now. Let me see. And I first started off in the United States Navy as a surface warfare officer, nuclear, and studied nuclear engineering. And I helped refuel a nuclear aircraft carrier. And I went on to work for the city of Virginia Beach for 9 years in the public utilities, operations, and maintenance. And then I worked for the Virginia Department of Transportation for 3 years. And I was just laid off from there. So now I'm currently working from home, but spend a lot of time with the American Society of Civil Engineers with the Virginia section, a lot of work there. And then also with the American Society of Safety Professionals as the engineering practice specialty administrator. So I spend a lot of time working, doing volunteer work, and posting a lot of stuff on social media, because that's reaching a lot of people. So I'm enjoying this transition in my life as I seek out my next civil engineering career opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Darren. And I know we appreciate all the work that you do for ASCE too. Preeti, welcome back.
Thanks. I had some internet trouble.
You know what? It happens, and it's just funny to think about in-person meetings. Like that would never happen if someone just disappeared.
Right.
It's kind of hard to plan for that. But I'll go ahead and read the introduction or the kickoff question again. For managers used to a more traditional work environment, what suggestions do you have as they must stray from their comfort zone and challenge their traditional ways? So Preeti, I'll turn to you next if that's something that you can speak to about challenging kind of the tradition.
Sure. So my work environment is very traditional and rules-based. We have some pretty strict work rules, like a firm start time. We were not able to do flex time. We didn't have telecommuting. The environment we were also in, we had a very contentious labor dispute for 3 years that resulted in our professional supervisory staff unionizing, and that ended about a year ago. So because of that labor dispute, I think there were a lot of trust and morale issues. So I will say, I think this pandemic has been very hopeful. My agency has been very proactive and transparent, and I think they've done a good job, and they should be commended. The governor in California ordered the Safer at Home on March 15th. And on March 16th, we got a memo that said they encouraged the people who could work from home to work from home. And a couple days later, and that was to work from home using your own equipment. And they have a Citrix server where you can log into work and see your desktop. So, all the people who worked in our office, it's pretty seamless. Our building is 24 hours. So anytime you want to go, you can go scan, print, or anything you need to do. And then you can do your normal work from home. And most of us have about an hour commute. So there's actually a good benefit for that. And so they issued this memo March 16th encouraging us to work from home. And the process was a little cumbersome. Well, 2 days later, they kind of said everybody out. And that's kind of been the way it's been. We have had 9 positive cases on a workforce at about 1,500. And they keep a log every day of informing people who has tested positive and the contact tracing that they are doing. And most of those people have been at our field locations because the professional staff is mostly working from home. They actively communicate through memos. And so far, the working from home is going to stay till at least the end of August. And from what I've heard from both, I know the employees are pretty much happy with this. The managers, I think it was a little bit of an adjustment, but I think they're pleasantly surprised by the productivity at home. And I think overall things have gone quite well. And I think this could be hopefully a way to modernize our work environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton, what are your thoughts on this topic?
So disclaimer, I'm not a manager. Obviously, I don't look the age of a manager. But my advice for managers would be to not view the pandemic as this like huge catalyst of why employees should be able to work from home, because eventually this too will end. I was really lucky that my boss encouraged a non-traditional way of working. So I started my new job in November, and I couldn't move out to DC from Denver until, well, I didn't want to until February. So I told my boss that, and he said, well, I need you in November. So I flew out to DC for 2 weeks in November, and then I didn't move to DC until February. So he had me working remotely for the first 3 months of my career with National Academies. Of course, once I got there in February, I was only in the office for about a month and a half. before we were sent home to work. So I've actually been working remote for 6 out of 8 months that I've been with my new position. So like I said, I'm really lucky because my manager has always been really flexible with this work from home atmosphere. So yeah, I guess that's just my advice, is to not view it as something that should be happening because of the pandemic, but should just be allowed as a more flexible way of life and working, because I've been here so far and I've really felt integrated into the company. Sure, there's a lot of things that I'm missing out on right now, but if you really want to hire an employee and work with them, there is a way to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Peyton. Darren, do you want to go ahead and share some of your thoughts on non-traditional work environments and what does this mean moving forward into the new normal?
I believe it means that all employees should have access that can work remotely to be allowed to work remotely. And it also means for managers to become comfortable with your employees working remotely. And so what does that mean? Allowing, giving everyone access to laptop or smartphones, so providing that access and providing that training and providing flexibility in the workplace. So I think we should be open to that, because with civil engineers, our work is thought-based, so we shouldn't have to have that physical control over someone. So allowing people to work from home, as long as they're being productive, which you'll be able to read the reports or their design drawings, or and if you do have people that work out in the field, there's work order requests that you can read or other reports you can read to monitor what people are doing. So I just think that's what we need to be focusing on is preparing for this or moving forward to this new normal and managing in the new climate, which means, so trust, I believe trust needs to open up with people, so, as managers.
Yeah, I think trust is so important, right? Like, you really kind of have to trust the people that work for you, and vice versa. Honestly, there's a lot of trust on the other end. So here's a question in the chat box. How do you ask for feedback from managers in a working from home setting, when in the usual case, it would be more casual and feedback is given more organically? So Lauren, or LP, I'll turn to you and see what are some of your thoughts on the best way to get feedback from your employer?
Well, I think the first thing would be to ask. So if you're sitting there and you don't have feedback, or you need feedback on what you're doing, I think you just ask for that feedback. As a manager, I would hope that we are all continuously providing feedback to the folks that we're working with, so that everybody always knows where they stand. So I guess from a management perspective, I would approach it that way. But if you are being managed and are in need of feedback, my suggestion would be just to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the just ask is a big part of it. I was really terrified to ask at first, because it felt a lot scarier going into like a feedback meeting on like a video chat, rather than just kind of swinging into my manager's office and saying like, hey, can we talk about this? So that ask is a lot scarier, but I think at least from my view of what my manager said, like, he was just like, yeah, sure, like, of course. And so now we just kind of regularly talk and have that meeting set up regularly. It's definitely like a lot scarier to get over that hump, that hill. But I found that even when we were in the video chat, it wasn't as scary, and we did have that rapport still. Sometimes it's a little laggy, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I think that's been a lot of people's thought, right? Like, it's really not so bad. It's not the best, but it's really not so bad. Awesome. Let me go ahead and turn to our next question. So many organizations have seen the ability of employees to effectively work remotely. What does this mean for the future of the workforce, and how will it impact how we lead and manage teams? So I think, Darren, you were already kind of looking long term in your last response. Preeti, did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's so our HR department gave a presentation in January on how to attract and retain millennials and Generation Z. So along the lines of what Peyton was talking about, they were talking about how the next generation wants flexibility in their work environment with work-life balance and, with dual income households, taking care of kids and parents, all these things. I think if you want to attract the top talent, you're going to need to provide those things. As far as virtual meetings go, I had never done one before this started in March, and I'm an extrovert. I like meeting people, and this has been a little difficult for me. I think it works fine if I've actually met the people, because you know them and you know the body language. I think it's a little harder when you don't know them and you have never met them even once. But I think this is a great platform to communicate, and I think it'll be used in the future now that we're all kind of used to it.
Awesome. Peyton, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess just for my organization and how we operate, we have a lot of committee meetings where folks come from all across the country. And I don't foresee, once travel is started up again, that will stop those meetings from happening. But I do foresee us, I feel like a lot of the times we have those meetings and then we don't talk again until everyone comes back to DC, right? And I feel like this having to meet online is going to be able to facilitate moving forward, actually having meetings in between and people easily being able to do it, because I think, like Preeti said, like some people haven't used these online platforms before. And I work with, I think the average age of the committees that I work with is, 65 plus. So them having to force to learn this technology has been really good for me, and that we'll be able to kind of continue it after we're able to travel again.
Yeah, that's a great point, Peyton. Awesome. And again, I just want to encourage everybody to go ahead and ask any questions in the chat box. Love to hear from you all. This is such a great topic that obviously applies to everyone, right? So, as we move forward in the new normal. Here's the next question. I've experienced that some managers act as if this is still business as usual rather than acknowledging that everything has changed. Everything is in all caps. I think that really adds to it, right? We're working remotely. Life at home is upside down. Kids are out of school / daycare. How do we keep delivering to our clients, but understand that we're in a new environment and may be quite different for some time? So LP, I'll turn to you. How do you, understand and kind of gauge what your employees are dealing with?
Well, I think at this time, and the good thing, if you want to say it's good or bad thing about what we're going through now, is that we're all going through it. So I'm a little surprised at the comment. It's a great question. I'm a little surprised that there are some managers out there that are operating as if business as usual, because it's far from that. Everything is completely different in how we still have the same projects, but the way we tackle the projects, the way we manage our employees, that is all completely different. So I think the good thing is we're all going through this together so that our clients understand that, our employees understand that, our schools, churches, everybody understands that. So I think we're all in this trying to figure this out together. So
I think I can jump in. So my sister and brother both work in the medical field, and I have witnessed my sister and my brother-in-law really struggling, because my sister works in an ICU where she takes care of COVID patients, and she has 3 kids under the age of 5, which their daycare has been closed. So they're trying to do work from home in an environment also where she goes to work not knowing if she's exposed or not. And at the beginning, she stayed with my brother for 3 weeks. And my brother-in-law handled the 3 kids and worked from home, by himself for 10 days. And so she's been relying a lot on family. Like I go help on the weekends, but it's been quite a struggle, and everyone is going through a different struggle. And even just getting groceries here in California has been a thing. You know, do you go to the store? Do you do pickup? Cleaning your groceries? And my brother-in-law is very hands-on. So in my sister's family, it's very even split of work. But my sister seems to still be taking a lot of the brunt of the childcare and the groceries because she's already exposed. So she goes to the store and does these things. So it's been really hard, and she's been very stressed.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think everyone's kind of everyone is in a stressful situation, no matter who you are or what you're doing, right? Like, and we all handle stress differently. So it's important when we manage people to really think about some of those things. Darren, did you have anything to add to that question?
Could you repeat the question to make sure I can answer it completely?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So how do we keep delivering to our clients, but understand that we're in a new environment and may be it may be quite different for some time?
Well, I mean, everyone sees the news, and I think everyone understands this is a national emergency. So, but I'm trying to think in particular. I think for everyone to understand would be maybe you did meet a lot in person, and now you're saying, I don't feel comfortable meeting. And if you do meet, I want to follow the CDC guidelines, 6 feet apart, or we're going to wear masks. So I think, yes, that's the new challenge as people are starting to go back to work and they're phasing in. Those are the newer restrictions. And then also, I do agree with if people do have children and it could be spread, then they probably want to meet you less. So it is a challenge. So I think it will be conveying to clients to be patient as we wait for a vaccine.
Yeah, I think patience is so important, right? So this question is a little bit unrelated, but you know, I'm kind of curious myself. LP, where are the good barbecue places in Hoover, Alabama?
We have several. Y'all are all welcome to visit, and I'll take you to each one.
We'll look forward to when we can do that, right? Awesome. So here's another question. As a manager, I have found that mentoring and motivating staff is more difficult remotely, and that it requires constant check-ins, follow-ups, and monitoring. It's not a trust issue, but rather maintaining efficiency and providing adequate support to help staff growth and advancement. If this is the new normal, what are some ways to keep our company's progress and growth on the fast track? So LP, I'll turn to you. This is something that that you can speak to.
Well, I can, and that's a very good observation. I agree with that. The difficulty for me as a manager, again, I'm more of a one-on-one, face-to-face person. So the difficulty for me is to see what is working well and what's not working well. And what I mean by that is if we have a project or a task and we have our kickoff meeting and we have our check-in meetings at thirds, you know, we're not able to do that face to face. We're doing that virtually. So it's hard for me to get a feel if I ask the question, hey, does this make sense? I can't see, you know, when I'm face to face, I can easily see if I'm way off base with something I've said, or I'm not making sense. It's easy to tell. But when we're working virtually now, you know, more check-ins, you know, that's definitely necessary, and asking pointed questions, I think, is more necessary. I think if you have any questions, let me know. That's probably not a good question because, you know, you typically get silence. I think you really need to have more one-on-one interaction, even if it's virtual, and ask specific questions. Hey, you've got this specific task. Do you know what you need to do to start? What can I do to help you? So I agree with that. It requires more check-in. And again, it's not a trust thing, because you already, in my mind, have established the trust and developed the relationship with your team members before you started on your journey. So that's my thoughts.
I'll just speak from a woman perspective. When we first started these virtual meetings, we were all in our t-shirts, and I wasn't turning on my camera. But there really is something to be said about seeing body language and face-to-face. It really doesn't matter if you're wearing makeup or have your hair in a ponytail or whatever. So I think creating that safe environment where everyone feels like they can turn on their camera even though they're at home and may have children or dogs or noise from the leaf blower. I think that is really important, because the face-to-face really makes a difference. And I was on some meetings where they're like, "Oh, we can't see you." And I said, "Yeah, I'm in quarantine clothes." And now I've gotten over that.
No, that's great. That's great advice. Body language is really important.
And I find that more women, I go on meetings and it's mostly all the women who have their cameras off. So that's why I'm making that comment.
Yeah, and I mean, from a very practical standpoint, it's like, hairdressers haven't been open. So if I typically dye my hair, like, you can see my roots. Like, just from a practical standpoint, maybe I don't want someone to see my roots because I'm embarrassed about it. Like, but I mean, that's some of the stressful things that people are, dealing with every day that we need to be aware of. So Peyton, I'm curious your perspective as, maybe the staff member that's trying to advance professionally, and you haven't gotten your PE yet, I don't think, but that's something, if you're working towards, you need to be working closely with someone, right?
Yeah, in terms of PE wise, my career path is a little different right now, and I'm not entirely sure where it's going, but in terms of monitoring and follow-ups and check-ins, I don't think I can stress. I know we're all like zoomed out, but still having those weekly meetings, like having it on your schedule every Monday at 2, if that's when you're the least busy, having those one-on-ones with your staff member, having a couple of check-ins that week, I think is just so important. Like I said, I'm a part-time grad student, and I just got out of a course on performance management. And one of the big things we learned in that was, this is more for goal setting, if you're trying to work towards something on a project, is the wildly important goal meetings. You can Google them, but they're supposed to be less than 20 minutes, and kind of go through a checklist of items to make sure you're delivering on your projects. So in terms of like resources, I guess that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. So I think the next question in the chat is really kind of at the heart of the first question that was asked. Allowing flexibility and accommodating personal difficulties is important, but the work still needs to get done. How do you drive performance as a manager under these conditions, or how would you like to receive this imperative? So, LP, I'm going to turn to you again.
Did you say LP?
I did. How do you drive performance?
So my answer to this question may be a little bit different than what most might think. So yes, the work still needs to get done, but as a manager, I am in tune with the folks I'm working with. I've got a great relationship, or I hope I do, with the folks I'm working with, and I do, or I hope I do, with my clients. Yes, the work has to get done, but if somebody at work has a personal issue, somebody in our office, they had a second child last week, and we moved some schedules out. As a manager, I think that it is more important for us to cater to the needs of the folks that we work with over the requirements of the client or the project, because in most cases I've seen, those dates and times can probably slide anyway, and what is a day or what is a week. So I would tend to lean towards making sure that we're empathetic with what our team members are going through, because we're all going through the same thing, and then recognizing that the clients are doing the same thing. So I would lean more towards what can I do to help my employees, and in return, I think their response would be making sure the work gets done when the time is right.
I think that's great advice. Darren, I know you mentioned that you are doing a lot of volunteer work. How do you manage to get the work done on the volunteer side? Oh, he's unmuting himself.
Yes. Well, actually, with volunteer, a lot of work I've done has been at a national level or statewide level, so we rarely get to meet. We actually only meet at a conference once a year. So because of that, we've always worked remotely or had telephone conference calls or Zoom calls. So actually with that work, nothing has really changed, because it's either through social media posts or it's through website updates, and someone locally is doing the work, and then we share it all together at monthly meetings. So I think when it first started, some of the individuals that had not been participating with virtual technology, it was a challenge. But for others I've been doing it for at least 7 years now, just getting training, because I know after the recession in around 2009, 2010, a lot of budgets were cut. So most of the training I could get, professional development, was through paying for online courses or searching out free courses, and also with just doing volunteer work. Yeah, you can't meet each other because you have a limited budget. So that was only meeting once a year, but trusting and knowing the people and knowing who could produce, and then also working with people that could not produce and seeing how they could produce, and trying different management styles to get the work done. So I would say right now the challenge has been, some people have been quiet, and I really want to know, okay, is it because you don't have a job or you're scared? So still, communication is important, and keeping up with people, and just try to call them randomly, just to make sure they're doing fine, because mental health is also an issue during this time. So it's not that you do have a job and you do have money, but now that physical connection you have with people is lost, and how are people actually handling that? So, or some people just sitting in the house all the time. That's not their normal. So, I think that's one of the big challenges right now.
Oh, you're muted.
Okay.
I think to piggyback on what LP was saying, a couple days ago, I posted on my LinkedIn about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that is organizational behavior theory. And the second level of that is safety. So if your employees don't feel safe, you're not going to get productivity out of them. So I think that's why a lot of people, move to work from home, because if they go back to the office and don't feel safe and are wondering, how they're going to use the bathroom, you're not going to get that same level of productivity we were getting pre-COVID. So I think what LP was saying is really important, and it's backed by a lot of psychological research.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a couple comments in the chat box that kind of go along those lines. I think it's important to recognize and even perhaps embrace that flexibility and performance/productivity are not mutually exclusive. So I really liked your point about, feeling safe. And then again, going with that, I have to keep reminding my group that just because someone is sitting at their desk in the office doesn't mean that they are working productively. And again, I don't know about you, but I think sometimes the time that employees can go back and forth between each other's desks and have little conversations, and I think there is a lot of time that's lost there that maybe in a work environment you don't lose. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, if LP, do you think you're being more productive?
I would agree with that, and I chuckled when you said, time may be lost by the impromptu meetings, and I'm probably an instigator of that more often than not, because we do talk about what are we going to do for lunch today. But I do think that's important because that builds the camaraderie, and then we all know that when we're working on a project, it's not just one of us, it's all of us, and so if we enjoy working together, we will work together well. So that's all.
Absolutely. That's great. And again, if there's any more questions, please share them in the chat box. But this has been really great. So another question, how are you evolving your management style to be a more effective manager in this new normal? Have you shifted your perspective at all? LP, I think you've touched on this a little bit, but do you want to expand on it a little bit more about how you shifted?
Well, no, I think, I'm still trying to figure out what, the best approach for working virtually. Again, I'm a face-to-face person, and virtual meetings are out of my comfort zone. So, as Pretty mentioned, we are still learning how to do these virtual meetings. So I don't know that I have anything else to add at the moment.
Awesome. Did anyone else have anything to add on that? No. Okay. So as employees start to return to the office, parents are in a very difficult situation without knowing when school will resume. What new policies might you consider for team members in that situation? Might you need to be open to part-time work or more flexible work schedules? Darren, is that something you can speak to?
Yes, I believe flexible work schedules will help team members to be productive and to stay with the team, but also meet the needs of their children during this time, because we really don't have a lot of answers yet on what's going to happen next semester. I know some colleges have given out guidance, and they're actually starting here in Virginia. We're actually going to start school earlier and end before Thanksgiving. So every situation will be different. So I would say to be compassionate with the employees that do have children, and even adult children, to be respectful of allowing them flexible schedules so they can meet the needs of their family and also meet the needs of the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. I know a lot of states kind of really don't know what school's going to look like, and that's really going to affect a lot of employees and a lot of employers too, right? Oh. So one of the most challenging aspects of returning to an in-person work environment is the management of different employees, different levels of fear, and keeping everyone safe. What are you doing to be aware of your staff's mental health needs? So, I know, Preeti, you've already kind of talked about this. If you want to expand on it a little bit more.
I'm not sure my employer is doing anything about mental health needs, except for the fact that they've been, I think, extremely generous with the work from home program and providing us. I think my personal feeling is the August 31st date was set to see what the schools are going to do, and that if the schools don't reopen or a lot of people don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school, the work from home may stay as long as people are being productive. We have access to healthcare through our employers, so I think the mental health component is a really big component, and to acknowledge that, it's hard for almost everybody right now. Everything's changed. And in California, we are just opening up lockdown, but in my area, a lot of restaurants have closed again because there's a lot of COVID positive tests. So it's kind of, I think the moral is we have to be flexible because things change basically day to day. I mean, tomorrow the hospitals could be overwhelmed and the whole thing change. So I think predicting the future is very hard right now.
Absolutely. LP, what are some of your thoughts on, helping your staff navigate these times as far as mental health goes?
Well, yeah, I agree with what Preeti said, and at our company at KBR, it's safety is a foundation for our company beliefs. So we've already put in place a number of protocols for returning to work. One thing, we've got a form that everybody in the company has signed, and this form basically states that before we enter the office each day, we are confirming that we do not have any symptoms, a cough, fever, whatever, something that might be potentially related to the COVID-19. If we do feel like we have symptoms, we're supposed to stay at home. We have given, for those folks that did not already have laptops to work it remotely, folks have been given laptops. We are asking for folks to take those home every night so that in the event they wake up, they don't feel good, or if there's another personal issue like, kids are home, whatever, they have the ability to work at home. So I know in the office we've done other things. We've posted signage about creating one-way walk aisles. We've decreased the occupancy levels for conference rooms. I know the one right down the hall from me seats 30, and now we're allowing 10. Preeti mentioned the bathroom, and we've got signs on every other stall that we're not to use those, and that might be tricky, but we've incorporated a number of things. Our elevator, we've got protocol there. 2 people maximum per elevator. We turned our freight elevator into a personal elevator to access our upper floors. Of course, we're requiring face masks when we enter the office, but all of these things that we're doing, I think, from how do we address the mental state of the employees, is just a reminder that their health and safety is our primary concern, and we want to show without question that we're doing everything that we can think of within the CDC guidelines to put their health and safety as a priority.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think mental health of employees is or should be a proactive versus a reactive program, or however you want to implement it into your company. Just kind of like I said, how the pandemic really shouldn't have been a catalyst into flexible working. I think that hopefully companies were thinking about the mental health of their employees before the pandemic. With my manager, he has been, so first of all, my organization, we only work 7.5 hours a day. So our work week is 37.5 hours, which is really great, provides that flexibility, and is easier on mental health because you're not working long hours, especially being home and working. I know some people are pushed to work a little bit more since we don't have anything to do. Put that in quotes, air quotes. And my boss has been really great about, even if there's nowhere to go or nothing to do right now, you're always welcome to take a vacation day or take a days off when you need it. So I think it really goes back to your company's policy and evaluating and making sure that you guys were implementing that before the pandemic and continuing it after as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's another good point. Many of us have been in the office when people come into the office with a common cold because they don't want to use their PTO. What do we do now, since we don't want anyone in the office with any sign of the symptoms, but people only have so much PTO? Preeti, what has your company done about that? Do you have any thoughts?
Like LP, we all had to sign the self-monitoring form. I think it's come from the CDC that says, if we have symptoms, not to come. We actually have pretty generous sick time benefits, and we are also allowed to take time without pay, some leave if situations arise. Yes, people often would come in with the common cold, but like I said, the professional staff is working from home, so I don't really know about that. But I know when I sign the paper, I find like I have cough and sneeze like every 2 days. So it's kind of hard if you're like going to be honest, what is a cough? A lot of us wake up with cough or sneeze, and then if it's allergies or what it is. So I think implementing that's going to be a little interesting when we go back to work or back to the office.
Yeah, absolutely. LP, have you changed any policies in regards to PTO?
Not that I'm aware of. I know, again, if we don't feel well, we are advised to stay home. And our company, we've seen, fortunately, that we've been able to work effectively from home, and that is 100% of the office. We don't have people we have people starting to go back now, but we've been fortunate that the people that have been home have been able to work effectively. So if somebody's not feeling well, I think the idea is stay home and work from home. Just make sure that, whoever you're working with, your teammates, know how to reach you.
Yeah, Darren, Peyton, do you have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, this is Darren. I know in the CARES Act it talked about emergency sick leave, so I believe until there's a vaccine, and hopefully there's more legislation passed where there are employers that can't probably afford it, that maybe the federal government or just people in general are offering sick leave because if you do have the symptoms, you're supposed to stay out for 14 days, which for some employers that can hurt. But we've seen if you force people back within that 14 days, and you can have it spread in your workplace, and you don't want that because we know the end result of COVID is death. So, and I see also travel policies too as part of the question, and I know ASCE has turned to virtual conferences, so there's been support above that, saying, okay, don't travel right now until things are figured out. So, and I know a lot of companies are supporting that too, where you can go to virtual conferences, but unless it's work required, like you're going to produce a product or do consulting for someone else in another region, you should probably stay in the region you're at so you don't help spread or catch it and spread it somewhere else.
And I guess something we didn't mention was obviously if you're really sick, you need to rest. I mean, you shouldn't be working from home if you're sick. There's varying degrees of sickness, but if you come down with COVID and are sick, it's okay to take 2 weeks or whatever it takes for you to get better. I mean, if you have fever and all this stuff, I'm not really sure how productive you're going to be.
So my organization has put together a PTO pool for people who are affected by COVID-19. So I know that that's a resource for me if I needed it. So I think it's for people who don't have too much PTO that they can't roll over, and they can donate it. So there's this big pool for employees to pull from if they are affected by COVID.
That's awesome. I've heard of other organizations doing that as well. That's really great that people are able to do that. I think we probably have time for one more question. And I guess this this actually piggybacks right into it. What policies do you envision will need to be revisited as we transition back to the office post-COVID-19? Telecommuting policies, sick leave policies, travel policies, we've all kind of touched on all of that. Are there any additional policies that we see or that you envision maybe that needs to change as we start transitioning back? Darren, I'll turn to you first.
I believe other policies, I mean, we talk about mental health, but I know most employers do provide employee assistance programs, so EAP, which, allows people some free sessions to speak to a therapist. So that's important. And also, and that touched me was the first thing CDC said, well, stay in shape, so we know we couldn't go to a gym, but I don't know how you can control that, but probably encourage that people are walking around. And also, we all have spiritual interactions, so we need to make sure, that's nothing that we control, but hopefully employees are focusing on their spiritual life also to stay strong so they can make it through these tough times.
Absolutely. Preeti, do you have any more thoughts on that?
Well, I'm hopeful that at least in public sector, which a lot of the organizations are pretty dinosaur in their policies. I'm hoping that this is going to lead to innovation. I've been on some calls and it seems to be a mixed bag, but I think the organizations that embrace it and move forward with it are going to have an easier time getting talent as people retire. As far as travel, I hope we go back to a mix of in-person and virtual, because I don't think virtual replaces in-person networking. I think it would be a shame if people use this to cut their travel budget forever and never allow people to go to conferences and things. But I'm hopeful for the future. I think this is, in every cloud, there's a silver lining. And I think this is going to lead to good things in modernization of the workplace that we needed.
Absolutely. So we have about 5 minutes left. So I think it'd be great if we go ahead and share some I'll let each of you share some closing thoughts before we wrap up. Darren, do you want to go ahead and go first?
I'm not prepared to go first. So.
You're not prepared. Okay, Peyton, how about are you ready to go first? No. Preeti, do you want to share some closing thoughts?
I just kind of gave my thought, but I think these roundtables are great, and I think encouraging us to all work together and learn from each other is a really valuable experience.
Awesome. LP, I'll go to you next.
Well, one thing before I close out, we talk about management and I guess leadership, and I guess all of us are probably thinking about those we manage, but I guess I wanted to point out that not only do we have direct reports, but all of us have supervisors. So we not only do we need to manage down, we need to manage up. So our communication link needs to go up just like it goes down. And then we have peers that we work with too. So it really goes out in all directions. So I guess I just wanted to note that I see this conversation today really is about how we manage in all directions, not just those who report to us. So, and I guess to close out, I guess, we're all performing some level of leadership and management, whether we have one person that works with us or multiple people or, whatever. The good thing, and I mentioned it earlier, is that, with this pandemic, we are all trying to meander these waters together. So I believe everybody's got a sense of empathy. Everybody understands that things are different and that, productivity, management, leadership, everything is affected right now. So our clients are dealing with this, our direct reports, our supervisors, everybody's affected. So the good thing is that if we try new management styles and they're not successful, and I have, and they haven't been, nobody has any issues right now because we're all going through something that's greater. So I think the key right now is to identify what's working well and try to continue that practice, and conversely identify what's not working well so we can improve it and discard it. So and again, since I like sports, a quick sports analogy, in a football or baseball game, we know when the game's over, right? Well, right now in this new normal, we're just in the middle of the game. So I think we should all be empathetic to our teammates and most importantly, optimistic that we can adjust as needed. So thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you, LP, for joining us. Yeah, it's like there is no tried and true method for dealing with this. Like there are no best practices. Peyton, do you have any closing thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I think I just, as a young professional, pretty new in my career, I think I just can't stress enough how useful it is for me to be able to meet with my manager once a week and have that structured time to talk to him. And then I had another thought. Oh, and then going forward, it's probably going to be a while before we're out of the pandemic, but just remembering and keeping true to the policies we're thinking about now and not returning to what we were doing before, and trusting the younger generation and the next generation we're all digital natives with being able to work from home and having that flexible schedule. Because I think like a lot of us said, I mean, I'm not speaking for my whole generation, but the flexibility is really great. And I've heard a lot of my friends saying, I can't wait to be able to have a day or two to work from home once everything goes back to normal. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Peyton. Darren, do you want to go ahead and close us out?
Yes. For me, with management styles and practice, I still believe monitoring performance measures to make sure the management style is actually effective. So making sure you're reviewing your budgets, and making sure just feedback from customers and from clients is you're still doing that. You're still taking care of those things. But we know some of the performance measures have changed with the new normal. So adjusting some of those measures to meet the new normal. So I would say that's very important right now. Thank you for this opportunity.
No, thank you. Thank you for joining us. This has been great. I've really enjoyed listening to everyone. Again, I want to encourage everyone that ASC members can continue this conversation in ASC Collaborate after this call. And then for anyone who's not yet an ASC member, I'd be happy to talk with you about benefits and resources that ASCE provides. And again, I will be sharing out this recording next week for everyone. I'll be sharing out this recording either tomorrow or Monday, so you'll have it, but I also put the link in the chat box, and then there's also a link to register for next week's call as well. So thank you again to all of our panelists. Really appreciate your time. This is a great topic, and it sounds like it will continue to evolve and grow in the future. So we might be having this conversation again in a few weeks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week.